Today is November 15th, 2021. This is the meeting for the Hannah City Planning Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. If everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence.
Is it okay if I sit?
Yes, you may stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Welcome, everybody. Hope everybody's staying warm.
It hasn't gotten cold yet.
Oh, it hasn't?
Oh, come on, Sherry. It's cold.
We'll get to about 15 below zero.
I better not.
Oh, I see what happens when it's 15 below zero?
No, that's
Just talking about it.
it's frozen. It wouldn't move.
So, no guests, nobody online. So the first item up is the hearing on proposed pre-annexation agreement with the owner seeking to annex property, PIN number of 16-09-300-20 and PIN number 16-09-300-22. This is West Barron Roads. This is the Bridgman property.
We'll just need a motion to open.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion to open public hearing.
A motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. We're in a public hearing.
I asked you to give us a little background.
Okay, yeah, I can take care of that.
Sorry.
So what we're really looking at tonight, first and foremost, is just the owners of this property, if they become annexed, they've requested residential zoning for that property. So we're going to go through the findings of fact and talk about, is it a good idea or is it a bad idea? Is it inconsistent with the comprehensive plan to zone this property as residential? And then our code also does say that this body gets to designate land suitable for annexation and make that recommendation to the board. So I thought on the safe side, I think maybe this group should also kind of make a recommendation, weigh the pros and cons of even entering into a pre-annexation agreement. So that way the board tomorrow night has something to look at when they're making their ultimate decision. But we're going through the motions. We got to go through the findings of fact as to whether, first and foremost, this is suitable for residential zoning class. So I figured, yeah, I mean, I can help tackle each findings of fact. So I mean, this property, and in your packets, you'll see it's quite a ways away from the village. I mean, the very far west side of the village, like I'm talking the outskirts, you go about maybe half a mile to a mile south, and that's where this property is. But then going towards the heart of town, it's quite a ways away. So it's out there. I don't believe our comprehensive plan even got that far in terms of if we get these properties in to the village, what are we going to zone them as? We haven't even made our way out there yet, so they're quite a ways away. But if you're not familiar with the area, there's some aerial photos from GIS and Google Maps that kind of show its location. It's out by the Village Mall, the Eden Village Mall.
The old Logan. Great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Why are they wanting to
I don't know.
My guess is that they've got some sort of construction that they're wanting to do, an outbuilding or something. It's easier to deal with us than it is Peoria County. He didn't say, though, and it wasn't on the application when he submitted it, so I don't know the exact answer, but that's normally what the reason why people want to annex in. Can we talk open?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess the thing for you all to consider is there's cost associated with pre-annexing people. We have the legal cost of preparing all the information and getting them annexed and getting all that filed and so forth. I don't know, call it $1,000 to $1,200 or something like that. For the chance that they never ever get annexed, right? So that we never ever see any.
Say, what are the chances of the properties around them connecting.
Yeah, at this point, I would say it's pretty
Light.
pretty remote chance that it will happen. Now, the other point is it doesn't. If we say that we're not interested in doing it now, it doesn't mean we can never go back, right? If all of a sudden we get a couple of properties out that way and it starts going their direction, and we've got this information, and we go back to it, they'd have to fill out another and submit another pre-annexation request. But we could go back and circle back and do something with them later if we want. Up until now, I think the philosophy's kind of been if we'll take all comers, and hope. But in my mind, I think we found ourselves. You can see up there, we've got some sporadic people that may or may never come in. The other cost is now, if they're pre-annexed, they're also under our code. So if they file for permits and do all that kind of stuff, then that creates work for the village staff. And it's not a terrible thing. We can do it. It's not the end of the world. I just think it's important for you all and the board to know that the value associated with pre-annexing someone, especially someone that is that far away, and the value of eventually getting taxes back to help cover those costs is probably pretty remote. It doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. It just means that's just the reality of the situation.
I think another point worth mentioning is that these pre-annexation agreements are valid for 20 years. So if they're still under a pre-annexation agreement for 20 years and never become annexed, well, if we eventually want to make our way out to them, we're going to have to do another pre-annexation agreement. We'd have to start this all over again. Or we could possibly extend or renew this pre-annexation agreement, but they're only in effect for 20 years, but that means they're going to be under our code enforcement jurisdiction for 20 years, and they might never be a part of the village within that time frame.
One other thing I should make you aware of is there's two key properties, two pretty sizable farms, one owned by Harding and one owned by, it's actually a group of people. A lady had passed away, and there's a trust that owns it, several, like 8 or 9 families. And if those two properties came in, I think it gives us a good chance to pull in the neighborhood that's down here. I don't know the neighbor's name, the one straight out 116 on the right-hand side. What is it?
Country Air.
Country Air. So that would bring in some additional taxes if we could get that one farm. And then the other one would bring us the Eden properties, because we do have some properties in Eden proper that have pre-annexed but not annexed. We reached out to them with a letter from Tony saying, hey, we would even offer some incentives if you'd be willing to annex in. The Hardings, we've not gotten a response from. The other folks said at this point that they weren't interested. But we could potentially circle back if we had some other things to bring them in. But without that farm, I don't think we're ever going to get Eden. Without Eden, then we're never going to get this far out into this space, would be my guess.
So they want to build something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And both of those are just farms. And at this point, we said, we don't have any need or desire to put any buildings on the property. So at this point, they may not. And I'm not trying to talk us against this. I just think it's important that we have. I bring the pros and cons to you all, and at this point, in my opinion, the pros are limited to someday we may see some additional tax dollars for that.
But until then, it's going to cost us.
Yes.
Yeah, there'll be some one-time only costs, legal costs, and then there'll be the ongoing code enforcement and things like that we have to deal with. Which again, is not a ton of money, but it is a cost.
I don't really have anything else to add.
You
But
guys have any questions?
They want to be residential,
that's what they requested.
That's
in
what
their
they
petition.
requested.
and there's not residential around them anywhere.
Best I can tell, everything says ag.
So
What happens
does that
if
make
they-
sense?
Yeah.
That's
No.
for
It's
that's for
just
you guys to
building.
decide.
Yeah.
But also, there are residential properties a little bit more to the northwest, kind of at the corner of, I think it's Hannah City, Eden, and
How much ground is here in this? How big is it?
yeah,
It
I thought it was
is
3 point something.
3.13 acres.
Okay.
Both plots or just the one?
That's just the 20. That is not the 22.
22, I think it might be smaller.
22 is the small one.
Oh, no, it might be a little bigger.
Oh wait, no, the
It's rectangular. What's the kind of a triangle? Or
trapezoid. I think
Yeah.
that's 20.
That's 4.8.
Oh.
straight residential. You got what they call rural residential too, that might be more something, but you'd have to get Johnson's, if he went straight out, you'd have to get Johnson's farm, you'd have to get Dooley's, you'd have to get Sips, and I'm not sure who owns that one right next to Eden, but you got three farmers that probably don't do nothing. They
Yeah, I
don't
mean-
need to.
Yeah, I think that's the long way of connecting to the village where you're going more towards the center of the village. I think I counted like seven separate parcels that would need to be annexed before these guys. The easiest route would be connecting from the far west side of town, just straight south, where it would only be about 3 lots that we need to get in order to pre-annex this property. But these are huge lots.
And I think one of them is the one that we're to get Eden. We have to get, and they've already told us that they're really not interested.
interested.
Yeah, I mean, and I get it. I mean, I own some farm ground with my family as well. You know, why would I increase my? Because basically, you're still going to pay Peoria County. You're going to pay Hannah City in addition to Peoria County. And if I don't think I'm ever going to build anything on it to get the advantage of not having Peoria County code, then why would I increase my taxes for for
We're not
nothing?
going to benefit that much from it, so
Yeah.
are we?
Can they ever come back and say, you have to maintain our road? Or how does that work?
That is a township road.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's. You can tell me if I'm wrong. I think there's risk if you got enough properties to the point where there was a certain road, then the township might try to ask
To make you do it?
and ask us to.
Like the estate out there. If we
It
were
would have to become our road, but and I don't know what the
Okay.
process for that is, but I know that Dunlap's had some of that with Peoria. That Dunlap has absorbed enough of some Peoria stuff that they've asked Peoria to start taking care of the roads.
Something on, yeah.
And they didn't take somebody.
I'm just curious. Does anyone know what Harmonyville Hill Creative Studio makes or does?
I don't know.
Township.
I'm just kind of curious. I mean, that's what her business is, so I'm just wondering what she's. It's probably in reference to that's what she's building. So I'm just kind of I was
She
just
has a business
curious.
there?
Yeah, I guess so.
And she wants it residential?
Correct. I believe there is a home there.
Well, so there's a couple of issues. One, do you even want to recommend annexation to the board? And at the end of the day, they can decide or not. And the others are, do you want to give them the R1 zoning? And if they're not pre-annexed, the zoning doesn't matter, right? Even if you grant them the R1, even if you guys said yes, but if we don't pre-annex them, they're not R1 because they're not in the village. They're still there. They are what they are. So
But we still just need to make a recommendation as to the
Agreed.
zoning, just in case the board decides tomorrow that, yeah, we want to pre-annex these people. We think there's a good chance within the next 20 years we'll connect to them, and they decide to do that.
I
Well,
don't think it's a good idea.
Why? How can they be
Not
zoned
at
as
the present
residential if they have a
time.
business right
You
there?
might be looking
it's
On the road.
at 5 or 10 years.
Down the
Something
road.
other people
but
might
see, I'm not positive that this business is still even.
I mean, it's
in
on
effect.
Google.
It's on Google, but it could have been dissolved.
I think you make a great point. Is we don't have to say no. We're saying not now, right? We could circle back
I'm just
later.
saying we table it for 10 years, Or, you
Or
basically,
something comes up between them.
you say, that at the present time, there's too many properties between the borders of the village to their borders to make sense for us to pre-annex it in at the present time. As things change, we can review this process.
Yep. I think that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and that's what the board might decide to do tomorrow. But one thing that we certainly need to tackle tonight is just the findings of fact and making a recommendation on zoning. So we don't need to answer every single one of these questions as a yes in order to recommend them as residential. And we can go off the answers that Brian and I have looked into, or we can draft up our own. But I suppose we can just hit them all in
Yeah, so
order.
you've got 2 copies in there. One's blank, so we can fill it out however we want. The other has some pre-thoughts as to what we can do. But these are your decisions, not ours. So
So yeah, the very first question being
hold on.
whether
Should we close the public hearing?
for the
Open
findings,
finding
yeah.
of facts?
I'll make the motion to close the public hearing.
The motion, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
And a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed the same. Motion carries. We are out of the public hearing.
Well, now we can go through our findings of fact. So the first one is, are there existing uses of other property within that area that are similar in nature to the residential zoning class that this property is seeking? And when I was taking a look, there are quite a few residential properties nearby. It seems kind of like the Wild West out there, where there's just a lot going on.
But there's also several that aren't.
Right.
So I don't know that it's a strong. I guess we didn't
You're
count them
talking
up.
about Eden.
Correct.
Eden's still 2 or 3 properties away from getting this to residential.
Right. But are there still properties in that general vicinity that are in line with residential? And when I was looking, I had to go a little farther northwest, north of the mall, just below village borders, to find a small residential subdivision there. But there are homes. And then as we make our way east, closer to the village, a lot of those they look agricultural, but there's also single family homes on them. And so there are residential properties in the area. So I personally don't know if it would be very inconsistent, but that's not my decision. That's up to you guys if you want to say the existing uses in that area are not in line with residential. Well, obviously, we can answer this one no.
What do you see in our GIS?
Farm.
I was going to say immediately right around it, it's agriculture.
Right. I mean, it's all land out there.
Yeah, because the biggest portion to the north, which is the LLC, the Mito LLC, it's 65 acres.
Okay.
And that's Copper's Creek that goes down and through that current property.
What do you guys think? Yeah or nay?
I'm gonna go with no, personally.
I mean, immediately it's all ag around it. Then if you go a little further, you can find some residential. But
You could say that about anywhere in Peoria County. so
are we good with that?
you have to set your own radius when you're
I would say.
open discussion.
You say no, Ken?
I'd say no.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing close enough to me that would make it residential.
By the way, it's a laser cutting
Yeah,
service. Oh,
I pulled it up too.
I was just kind of curious.
They do laser cutting and engraving.
It's laser cutting.
Yeah, that Harmonyville Hill Creative Studios, they do laser cutting and engraving.
Probably like metal signs and stuff you see at
Metal
Spinner
signs.
Drive. And
Probably cups, glasses, wood.
I would think if one's no too, I don't see any trends.
Yeah, the only trend I thought there might be was looking to that small subdivision to the northwest again, showing there's some residential homes being built over there, or maybe they've been there for a long time. I'm just not clear on that, and so I don't know what the trend has been.
I don't think there's been any new properties built in Eden in quite a while.
Okay.
So no, because there's no recent trend.
Eden properties were probably, Jerry Lampright was probably the last one that he sold and stuff. That was probably been in the early 70s.
So no.
No recent trends. Is everyone on board with that?
Maybe mid
I agree.
70s.
What do you think of 3?
Mhm.
Can you explain that? What does that mean?
Sure. Conditions which render the subject property less desirable and appropriate for other zoning classes. So is there something about where this property is situated or what's going on with it that makes it not a good lot for, let's say, ag or let's say industrial
I would say
business?
if you're talking residential, you're not talking just acreage. More residential to me would be like lots.
Yeah.
And there's a business on it.
You're talking acreage here. You could go something like, I don't know what we have, but like the rural residential, which would encompass a little more acreage. So I would say that that's probably right.
That's kind of what I was thinking too. I don't think this property is necessarily a good property for business or industrial. So what we're really looking at with this one is, is there anything about it?
Agriculture or something.
So this would be yes, if that's the case.
It would be yes, I think.
Okay. Yeah, that's sort of what I was getting at. I mean, it doesn't seem like a good candidate for a business district or an industrial district, and so it's kind of like, does that bode well for this being residential?
And even having the business on there doesn't really keep them from having it residential, because it could be a home-based business that they run. Now, if they had a big manufacturing and stuff out there, then it would be industrial. That business wouldn't be the same.
Right. And then it wouldn't be a good candidate for residential, but I think it's not a good candidate for business and industrial. So it's almost by default a better candidate for residential or ag, which they're asking residential. So, I mean, if this group is on board with that, then I think the answer would be yes.
So 4.
Are there other areas already zoned for the uses to which the subject property is currently zoned?
There are, but they're far enough away that.
I'll second where to
apply.
They're not close
But
enough.
Eden's still quite a ways away. I would say.
So no?
That's what I would say.
Well, if we're saying no, then we're saying that there aren't very many
No,
areas.
it still would be yes. Way it's written, it would be yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Because what we're asking is this residential zoning class, are there other areas in the village
There are
that are
other
zoned that
areas.
way? There's a lot. So
I guess I have a question. It seems in the discussion that we're having, there's a lot of interpretation as to what is close vicinity. So do we have a definition of half a mile, quarter mile? Because I'm not talking necessarily about this property, but future discussions, we are going to have that problem, especially as we grow and get to these more rural areas. I think we need a much more defined definition of what is the close property, because 4 lots over, if they're 50 acres apiece, now we're talking 4 or 5 miles. You could still answer these differently. So I think that's worth noting for future discussions.
I think it's completely a judgment call for this body. Also, I think you need to take into account what sort of zoning districts we're looking at and define close vicinity based on those. Because if we're looking at industrial zoning,
Right.
Well, close vicinity could still be a ways out. These are huge lots, even agricultural, but residential close vicinity might be much closer. There's a lot of homes that are 30 feet apart from each other.
The other thing is that if I read this, it says, are there areas already zoned for the uses to which the subject property is currently zoned? Well, it's currently zoned
right.
ag
Mhm.
in Peoria County.
I don't know why you'd want to change it, to be honest.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So the answer to this one would be yes, right? Are there other areas already
That would
zoned? Because right around it, there's other ag.
Right. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me why they want to go.
Does the zoning change serve the public interest? I think no, because what
I
you guys
don't
are saying.
think it serves any service.
Is the zoning consistent with the comprehensive plan? To be honest with you, it's far enough out that it's not really part of the
No.
comprehensive plan. So I guess that means it's not inconsistent, right?
Right. And
So-
we've taken that position
That would be a
before.
no, yeah.
We're this group, because it's kind of got to be a democracy here on especially this question, but all of them really. Just, is it consistent with the comprehensive plan? Well, the comprehensive plan doesn't make its way out there. So essentially what we're looking at from this group is, what do you foresee if the village does expand large enough and gets down there, and we do need to amend our comprehensive plan at some point? What kind of properties would this group prefer to see out there? Would we like more businesses? Would we like more
I don't think-
subdivisions?
Based
You
upon what
and
I've
him
heard
and
so
him
far.
and her might be the only ones in this room that
Hey.
can see that.
Okay.
We won't care, will we?
No, that's what I'm saying.
We'll be in this field of cottonwood.
That's right. We're not gonna be here.
Based upon what I've heard everybody say, though, you don't have any problem if we pre-annex it someday, but you would see it as ag, at least as it sits today. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe they'll add a new cemetery over there. It could be over there.
Well, if they come at you with a
You
house,
can't do it if they do
house
residential.
building proposal
I mean, I think
on the property.
the
That makes
ultimate
it
goal
different.
of
Yeah.
the board, of the zoning committee, everything is just to expand the community for the better, right? So down the road, it'd be great to have more residential. It'd be great to have more businesses, but it's got to make fiscal and financial sense for Hannah City as is. I mean, we're all paying enough taxes already, and we have other uses for that money within the town.
That's right.
So that's kind of where I stand, being 30 and probably being stuck here, not stuck here, but
Okay,
being here for
you're
a
the one
while.
that's gonna say it.
Good point.
So I'm thinking that's a no. Or you disagree with that?
I'm not going to disagree with the planning commission.
I think it's-
Well, let me say, based upon our discussion, is that your understanding of what we're saying?
I would say that it is perfectly fine to put no if we don't think that we're going to make our way down there
It's
anytime
not
soon.
our comprehensive plan at the present time.
Mhm.
You know, you might be looking at a 20-year plan rather than you're looking out 5 to 7 years.
Mhm.
I say that's not 20 years. When Irene and I don't really care, you know, you're going to have to.
It's gonna take 20
Somebody's
years.
going to have to
It's gonna
decide
take
at
20
that
years.
particular time.
Right.
The other thing is, I don't know if we know where, is it 336? Is that the name of the road that's eventually coming through?
Yeah.
It won't be far from there.
Yeah, because that's always
Oh,
been
yeah.
proposed.
Again, Irene and I won't care.
None of us may see that.
Yeah, they've been talking about that since I was.
Yeah,
I mean,
since
I
I've
have
lived
bullfrog.
here actually 20 years.
So we're recommending.
You've been talking about it. Yeah, Jack Beaver been in here about it.
So is that what our thought is on
About
this
that.
last question then? It's not consistent with our comprehensive plan because our comprehensive plan doesn't even foresee us getting down there right now.
Correct.
I'd say it does not.
It's gonna be a long time before we get out that far.
You bet, Bill.
And with that, that's only 2 out of 6. So that means that we just someone makes a notion that we don't put this.
So this would be, so the recommendation now based on only 2 of these 6 being answered as yes would be against changing it to residential. That's essentially what this line of questioning did
I
was.
don't understand his purpose for changing it to begin with.
I don't either,
Okay.
Kenny.
Unless
That's
he
like,
wants to-
I'm confused on that.
Unless he wants to build a house on it.
I don't know.
Or is Peoria County putting some pressure on him for some reason?
Could be that too. And then, you know, we've had other people that have come before the village board that have had fines and stuff, and you know, been like, you know, I want to pre-annex, and then you know,
Yeah.
things happen.
Bail me out.
Bail me out, and we say, yeah, you know, we'll bail you out. You know, clean up your property, get it taken care of, and Peoria County says, okay, well, we're gonna remove all your fines and liens, and then the owners go, I'm not doing anything.
I'm gonna say that's a responsibility we don't want to take.
Exactly.
We don't need
And that's already bitten us once, so.
we don't need that. I make a motion that we don't accept it.
I agree.
So recommendation is against zoning them as residential.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've got one, we've got a second.
Second.
I'll vote on it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
So we'll just circle against on that.
And we have to do the same thing for, do we want to annex or not annex? And I'm assuming we were against annexation.
We don't need to go through all these formal findings with this question. This is ultimately a board decision, but I'm sure they'd be more than happy to take your input into account.
Okay, so you're saying we don't have to vote on this, the annexation?
We'll vote on the recommendation
Okay.
for annexation or against it, but we don't need to make all these findings again. These findings were just for zoning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the village will make its own decision.
The board can come to completely different reasons, but I'm sure they would like to know what your reasons are, either for pre-annexing this property or against it.
You were going to say something.
Well,
Our reasons
probably
were-
not. I already forgot what I was going to say. You know, I forgot to take my president.
I thought you were about ready to make a motion that we do not annex.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
20-year plan.
Somebody,
Up to 20,
I'll second it.
20 seconds sometime. Walk
Second
into
the
a
motion,
room,
we
what
do
the
not
heck did I come
make
in
the
here
annex.
for?
I should word it a little differently. This would be entering into
Oh,
a
no,
pre-annexation agreement, because we can't annex them yet anyway. So it's just, what do we want to recommend to the board?
Pre-annexation.
And so you agreed in that? A motion that we will not enter a pre-annexation agreement? Is that correct?
That this planning commission is against the board pre-annexing this property.
I think that's right. I don't hear that well either. You get aged,
I'll make that
Let's pick
motion.
Yeah, right.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Too many dead ends.
Joe.
Motion.
Chris and Joe.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
All those opposed, same. Motion carries.
So the key reasons we put down was distance,
Mhm.
not part of the comprehensive plan. Anything else?
Well, the other
Reasons
thing I
against.
would put in there is there's too many properties between us and them at the present time. That there's really not, that
Are you making
the properties in between haven't
Yeah.
really addressed the wanting to come in here yet either.
So what I'm hearing is it's too tenuous right now that we're going to be able to get to that within 20 years. And within those 20 years, the village is going to incur some costs along the way without really reaping the benefit. At least that's what we're thinking here now today.
Yep.
I'm out.
I think that's what I would.
What did we do on the last one?
Well, distance, not part of the comprehensive plan, and
1915.
Costs.
cost.
Ahead.
Okay.
Cost versus value.
Time in. I just had to check the Illini score. Sorry.
Are they winning?
Yeah.
Danny and I are over here. Yeah, it's close, 1915, but.
I'm a Rams fan. That Monday Night Football game's not until later.
Yeah,
About 40 minutes.
you'll make yours.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, Chris.
So is that one you want them to sign?
Yeah, we'll just do that one.
Okay.
Which one was mine?
You got them all there?
Yeah, I got them all. You can check those, Michael, if you want to. Those notes I made there at the bottom.
You didn't
That's exactly what I got. I
oh,
don't know if you wanted me to write in some like reasons for each of these findings. because we have-
We can do that after we
Yeah,
get
I
it.
like them to find tags.
That was.
I'm gonna have to rewatch
Do we need to
Got you
give that to
confused?
the league plan?
We should, yeah.
I would be, I would be.
Doing this, but has the board been certifying the findings of fact from planning commission? Just a vote to certify.
Okay.
We've read it, we agree.
I don't think so. Okay. We'll make sure we do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's not the way.
On to the next item, since we got a game going on. Everybody should have a copy of the minutes from our last meeting on October 18th. Is there any additions and changes? They were
Hard from it. Probably need to send these to Michael too then. What's that?
with no changes or additions.
I'll make the motion to approve the meeting minutes. Sorry. I believe that's what you were asking.
That's correct.
I'll second it.
You have a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. No correspondence. Yeah, that's.
No.
Do I need to feel that?
No, but do we have to allow that internally? Because we didn't create a folder.
We should still.
Oh, I think we should still just create.
So, next meeting right now is tentatively December 20th.
I doubt we'll have one. I don't have anything that's coming up, so it's going to take something big to have it. But most likely, if
I
there's
thought you
nothing
were going to
big,
have us here for a Christmas party.
well, we could do that if you want. If not, I'll push it to January, even if we have something.
Yeah, never mind. With that being said, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody. I apologize about being late again.